What if Goku was betrayed and trapped in the Hyperbolic Time Chamber for a millennia? Another strange, weirdly power-scaling-esque oriented format turned into a meme that's been going around for actually quite some years in all types of communities. And honestly, I'm not shocked it has. These thumbnails go absurdly hard, and it's just so utterly absurd and weird that it's kind of interesting. So, similar to could Goku cripple beat Naruto, I actually wanted to be that guy that takes this subject down and explains what would actually happen if Goku was trapped in a time chamber, or Whis' staff as some later versions do, and was forced to be in there. Probably upset and then seeking to escape, understandably so, for 1,000 years. You might be surprised to know, just like Goku Cripple, that we actually might have a somewhat decent way of answering this with pretty good certainty. Of course, we can't foresee what Toyotaro will do with Super and Goku's power-ups and so on in the future, but we have some ideas based on the past that will help us deduce what would transpire, if not just being more absurd than the results that will probably be generated. Based on the thumbnails of these sometimes 4-hour-long videos, talk about dedication, it seems that these are usually Dragon Ball Super Goku, post-Tournament of Power or whatever has Ultra Instinct most of the time. Some of them even go into weird detail that I will not, like what if he was trapped and then got with Caulifla or Vados during or something, and I'm not going to be doing that. But the 1,000 years of angry training part, I will cover. Sorry to those that wanted the hypothetical Zikor Goku Angel Baby narrative thing, or the Dragon Ball AF timeline and whatever to follow suit. I'm not here to tell a fan-made story, just give facts and teach you some as usual. First things first, that needs to be talked about before Goku is trapped for even a singular minute. The Hyperbolic Time Chamber, or Room Spirit of Time, are not really the prisons that the memes like to make it out to be. This concept is based on the fact that the time chamber located in a subspace disconnected from the concepts of space and time, and it was stated or implied that if you stayed in there for too long, the gates between the disconnected dimension would seal off and you would sort of be trapped forever. This was outlined in the main franchise stories, the manga, the anime, and even all the games, and it was the big reason that Goku, Vegeta, Piccolo, and the gang and only really trained for short periods of time, instead of sitting in there for like a week and have 7 years of training to fight Cell and then defeat him with 0 difficulty or something, or some absurd decades long of training that's just totally unnecessary. This is obviously a limitation to keep stakes realistic, as if they could train their entire life before fighting Cell. That probably wouldn't make that much sense with the way the story worked. The tension might be a little bit weird. Even Goku needing more than maybe 10 years to fight Beerus is actually sort of getting on people's nerves, let alone perfect Cell. But by the Buu Saga, Piccolo, who has the mind of Kami, believing this fact, decides to let Gotenks, the fusion of Goten and Trunks, throw hands with Super Buu to see if they can defeat him. But Piccolo's trump card, or last resort, was actually to destroy the door to the chamber and thus seal Super Buu and the boys in there forever so that they could never escape ever again. Which in hindsight is actually a pretty crazy decision. Then Super Buu starts having a panic attack and then screams so hard it rips a hole in the dimension, leading back to the real world with Super Saiyan 3 Gotenks following suit with the same Ki scream attack. Super Buu, with Ultimate Gohan absorbed later when he's facing the fusion of Goku and Vegeta Vegito, actually does this same attack called Outside Space, but can cover the entire universe with it and crush it with overlapping alternate planes and dimensions. In Dragon Ball Super, Vegeta also does something like this, but on a next level, where he sort of powers up so hard that he accidentally just destroys the entire chamber and then ends up on Kami's lookout and destroys the temple, which makes Popo super upset that he just sort of keeps basically nuking the Palace of God on Earth by being careless with his strength gains. By the time of Dragon Ball Super Broly, Gogeta Blue and Broly punch each other to the point that they just end up in other dimensions. So being locked in a dimension isn't really Goku's thing. Even in Dragon Ball GT, he tends to escape alternate spaces And in the video games, it's literally the entire story most of the time. The canon, not much different. So that's where we get to the, I'm not really sure what to call them, the angel chains or something. Maybe an aficionado of the betrayed and trapped genre can correct me, but it seems to be the distinction that keeps Goku locked away, keeps him from escaping, or keeps his energy close to him, maybe like Aizen's chair and suit and Bleach. That seems to be the reason that the meme evolved from the time chamber to more so Whis' staff, which has no real known limitations, and even the super tier characters struggle inside of it, and they have to control their energy hyper specifically to even be able to move in it. To break the staff, you probably need to be above Whis' level, I think, is the basic assumption, making it a lot better than the angel chains. But we then see a combination of the angel chains and the staff in the final form of the format, which then leads us to the trapped for a millennia narrative, which makes more sense, but still not really, which I'll get into soon. That being said, let's get started with what we know, then we'll get into the hypotheticals with what we know. We have a few tidbits of alternative timelines and forms of Dragon Ball media that explore what future Gokus generally tend to look like in terms of their role in the story and what they should be able to do. Some of them were worked on a tad by Toriyama himself, and others are franchise hypotheticals. Example of a hypothetical would of course be Dragon Ball GT and the special edition A Hero's Legacy, which takes place 100 years after the events of GT, which are already over a decade after the defeat of Kid Buu. During this, Son Goku follows his strange transcendent journey following the defeat of Omega Shenron and the Shadow Dragons, and his union with the Earth Shenron, and is a strange figure that appears in and out of the world almost as a type of watcher type figure that is just above everyone else as a spectator. I go into a bit of detail about this in my video called Dragon Ball GT The Honest Truth, which delves into this Goku Dragon transcendence narrative a bit, but this theme is not present in the main story, as GT is more of a side story that Toriyama is of course a spectator to. Goku in the main story does not have his Dragon Ball merger moment, at least yet, and in Super that doesn't seem to be the case either, so it's not important to go over it too much. The end of the series in the main story, called End of Z Goku or Final Goku, which I talk about in detail here, was supposed to be a peak fictional powerhouse that was truly Toriyama's #1. He couldn't imagine getting any stronger, even stronger than his gag character Arale, who literally pretty much did whatever she wanted. If you connect the events of End of Z to Dragon Ball Super, we'll get an interesting way to calculate Goku's strength over time, as even base Goku can defeat the reincarnation of Majin Buu Oob during this arc, who could, with zero training and honing of his powers, much before this, amplify Goku to go Ultra Instinct against Moro during his respective arc. This will be a somewhat good way of going about it, as will some others, but it may not be necessary. The last one that we will have to work with is actually from a very old Dragon Ball video game called Dragon Ball Online, which was actually worked on slightly by Toriyama himself, and Dragon Ball Online was actually the introduction of the Timebreaker characters that Toriyama designed, including my old profile picture Timebreaker Bardock and so on, which you may know from Dragon Ball Dokkan Battles, Xenoverse, etc. Interestingly, the video game had more lore and guidebooks than the actual Dragon Ball Super series currently does, outside of some random V-Jump scans or the occasional art book or interview. I actually do personally hope that changes soon. It makes my job a lot easier when they just kind of have a book telling you what things to do. With a load of information and lore inside a book called the Dragon Ball Online Guidebook made by Bandai Korea. Considering Toriyama's strange involvement with a lot of games, including this one somewhat, the concepts, especially considering the timeline, are actually kind of interesting as it goes over the future of Goku and what his eventual death would probably be like, at least way back when, before Super was even conceptualized. Dragon Ball Online was sort of the original Dragon Ball Xenoverse, but more directly monitored by the more OG Dragon Box teams at the time. And in the guidebook, we learn of the actual death of Goku and around what time that might look like, which is in the year 801, or around 27 years after the defeat of Kid Buu, almost 30, 19-ish, 20-ish years after current Super, and less than that, around 17 or so after Goku faces Oob. which is stated in the Dragon Ball Online timeline. It says this: Age 801, Son Goku vanishes. Knowing his end is near, Goku leaves Earth with Vegeta so that the two can finally settle their score. Several years later, at least over 3, the astronomers note the explosion of a supernova. Possibly, this was an after effect of Goku and Vegeta's battle. This means that Goku is around 60-ish years old, perhaps his mid-60s if you include the 3 years of time chamber training for Universe 6 and the 1 year for the Cell games. However, in the Dragon Ball Online timeline, that 3-year figure wouldn't have been conceptualized. Considering he was dead for 7 years during the Buu Saga time skip, and for a bit after the Raditz fight, thinks that his end is near, with the implication being of his actual age, as obviously the death for 7 years doesn't apply to his actual biology. There could be an argument that his fight prime, or his actual body, begins to wane off in his 60s, or when he's about to approach to his 70s. This is a bit interesting since in Dragon Ball Super, during the Universe 6 arc when Goku and Vegeta trained for 3 years, Goku brings up a quote that Vegeta told him as a retort to Vegeta making fun of his mental age, with Goku saying that Vegeta once stated a Saiyan is relatively young until their 80s. This could be that their prime could be a bit later, with Vegeta maybe hearing that from Saiyans who would fight even as old men. Paragus himself is pretty decently powerful as an extremely old man as well, with a power level of 4200, which for Dragon Ball Super standards isn't that great, but back in the Saiyan society, Saiyan past his prime with the messed up foot is really good actually, considering Nappa, who is probably a mid-class or elite by the old standards, although it's a bit retcon, had a resting strength of 4000, so Vegeta's statement may be less about physical aging and more of combative aging, but in this instant, Super takes precedence over this old timeline, and we don't know Toriyama's full involvement with it. The other theory is that Goku may be developing some type of health issue, as he is known to contract illnesses and other problems with his body that may not have to do with his actual youth. Even when Goku says, "my end is near," the implication is that he and Vegeta then dash off and fight for what seems to be several years straight, with Vegeta being around 5 years or so older than Goku, give or take. Anyway, during this, they dash off and basically fight so long and hard somewhere that it is incomprehensible that they were even there, and that they sort of explode and then vanish from existence, which is actually a pretty cool concept, all things considered. It does bring up the question of Goku's lifespan, though. So I'm also going to be assuming for the actual meme that Goku just has a weirdly infinite Hero's Legacy type lifespan, where he can just hypothetically train forever without dying as an old fart, or maybe he doesn't age inside of his weird angel staff in chain prison, or so on. From here, we formulate a few things to calculate the strength gains that Goku would actually be able to do inside of this prison. It's implied he can train, as whenever we see him in these thumbnails or the post-training images that we do get, it's always something akin to him busting out and then fighting El Grande Padre in his super unsubtle, super buff dad form, or Evil Zeno 1 and 2 that he's killing in Ultra Instinct 500 wearing an angel fit or something for some reason. Maybe marrying Vados with his mastered god form or some weird, I don't know, man. Anyway, it's implied he can train, so the formulas. We can go a few routes. We can go the Super route, GT route, or the Buu Saga routes here, and there are also conversations we have to have concerning fusion, what it means to surpass those, and all types of stuff, as well as what it means to surpass God's Destruction, Angels, Zeno, and so forth. The Buu Saga training route and calculation is pretty safe for a few reasons. For one, it's pretty concrete and has the least amount of plot amps from what we know, but it is still really ridiculous, and I think that people need to realize what actually happens to Goku throughout just the normal show, right? Not even the continuations. In Super, which I'll get into, Goku will become absurdly stronger in like 2 seconds for the sake of the story, whereas in the Buu Saga, most of the gains are from their 7-year training itself, especially since we can gauge Vegeta, who did solo-type training for the most part, and his gains should be even less than Goku's, hence why he needed the Majin power-up to equal him as a Super Saiyan 2. GT as well can be given a pretty safe pass, however it's obviously just not the main canon story, and it'll be used as a potentiality. Whis also directly comments on post-Buu Saga characters and their training methods in terms of strength gains, claiming that with Vegeta's style of training, which should be far enhanced since the Buu Saga post-Battle of Gods, that he would just never reach Beerus' level if he even trained for his entire life. Basically, not reaching Beerus for probably over 40 years before becoming an old head. Once again, why we're just going to assume that Goku has an infinite lifespan in Whis' staff, which is a pretty accurate assessment of Vegeta's potential by Whis, considering even with God training, he's taken pretty much a decade of it and still getting one-tapped, going by the manga. This makes the gains Goku would receive with similar types of training actually downplay over a millennia or 1,000-year period. With the calculation, we could actually deduce that whatever it comes out to, he should actually receive something much higher. So anyway, let's just cut the Dragon Ball is ridiculous. It makes these memes even more unquantifiable and ridiculous to boot. Let me give you an example. Goku starts the series out with a power level of 10, right? This is a pretty objective and confirmed number, and all the guides and so on, like Daizenshu, he thinks bullets are ouchies, he can launch people like an artillery round, can't punch through certain types of metals, etc. He then reaches a power level of 180 by the 22nd Budokai tournament, 260 by the time he faces off against Prime King Piccolo after drinking the Ultra Divine Water, and 910 with the Super Kamehameha by the 23rd Budokai after training with God. Around 90 times stronger with his toughest technique over the course of 6 years. Not bad. Wrong. Use your brain. Goku goes from getting launched by Yamcha through some pillars with his ultimate move, the Wolf Fang Fist, to Goku blowing up Moon. The amount of energy needed for Yamcha to blast Goku away like that would require 6.9 by 10 to the 6 joules, or around 6 million joules. This is based on Goku at the start of the series being probably around 1 meter tall in height. Some people have tried to do hyper-specific calculations based on the size of his foot compared to Puar, and yeah, I'm not joking. Whatever. Just say he's 1 meter tall. Compare his 1 meter height to the pillars he's smashing through, making the width of each one around 40 centimeters. Assume the pillars are made of a generic rock or stone. Some have tried saying they could be similar to a type of white chalk rock in Egypt, whatever. Find the volume of the 3 fragmented stone pillars in the general area, combine them together, insert the energy calculation for how much of the values of high fragmentation on that specific area of rock, and bam. Seems overly complex, but it's also sort of like saying he has enough power to level a building. So, what does destroying the moon require? Well, the moon is actually easier to figure out, as well as the Earth itself, because it has something called gravitational binding energy, which you can Google yourself right now if you wish. If you surpass this value, the moon's gravity can't physically hold itself together. Neither can the Earth if you surpass its binding energy. Goku is stated in the Daizenshu to be able to then shatter the moon, just like Master Roshi did in the 21st Tenkaichi Budokai, if not just multiple times over. The moon's binding energy is generally considered 1.2 by 10 to the 29 joules. So what does that mean? I'm no good with notations, programmer. Can we cancel that guy again? It's basically like saying from the time Goku is bending car doors to shattering the moon, he would have gotten 17 sextillion times stronger in 6 years. But that's also bull, because Goku surpasses Master Roshi, who could do this when he fought King Piccolo with a power of 260, let alone 910. Then Piccolo Jr. and Goku surpass this so much that Goku Cripple can still beat up Kami, who can just make the moon. Then you may say, programmer, that's just because Goku is growing into an adult Saiyan. His potential was much greater at the beginning. No. Krillin doubles Goku's power level less than 6 years later. Doubles it. With the same training that brought Goku to half of that level. He quite literally one-shots 6 creatures who would all individually manhandle moon-shattering Goku with 0 effort, and he is just a dwarf man. Goku, then in less than a year, reaches a level of 8,000, and in El Manga Legendario, we learn that a level of 10,000 can destroy a planet. This is shown by Vegeta becoming the first "I'm gonna blow up the planet" guy to appear in the story with a rating of 18,000. With the Earth requiring 10 to the 32 joules to destroy, multiple orders of magnitude above a moon. Then Goku goes from 8,000 to 90,000, training for literally 6 days. over 10 times the power level in 6 days, to the point that the Ginyu Force say this has nothing to do with him being a Saiyan, he is cracked. Frieza then has calculations he can destroy dwarf stars by nuking a planet with 10 times the mass of Earth with one finger so hard that it launches the debris into the void of outer space at much faster than light speeds. Goku then has his body get beat up one time and goes from 90,000 to 3 million, over 30 times stronger from one ass beating before fighting Frieza, then multiplies his power by 50 times again with Super Saiyan and reaches 150 million, essentially multiplying his power by 18,000 times in less than a week. These levels, as we discussed earlier, aren't even linear half the time, with Frieza creating a supernova so large by nuking Namek, you could see it light up the entire galaxy it took place in. It got so absurd that these numbers we gassed up for blowing up a moon became completely irrelevant months later, as Goku just accidentally blows up planets in Namek's solar system as he haymakers one of Frieza's attacks away. So Toriyama saw all this and had some foresight and was eventually just like, okay, so yeah, the power levels, not gonna be a thing anymore. They just can't really be measured. The Zenkais, those will be smaller now too. Whatever. Also, Cell can, destroy a solar system. Probably. Enjoy Dragon Ball and play Dragon Quest. Also, Terminator is a cool movie. The anime staff then saw this and said, boring. Anyway, what if Majin Buu tries screaming the universe away against Goku and Vegeta fused together? Sick. Anyway, Cell can destroy the solar system. Okay. Then what does it mean when Kid Buu is a threat to the universe over time? I'll tell you. Even if Kid Buu systematically shredded every galaxy in existence over time, rather than three-shotting the universe, it would have insane training gain connotations. For one, if he even destroys more than one solar system at a time, which is implied by the anime showing us singular bolts of energy and blobs engulfing stretches of a galaxy, we can get an insane figure of how much stronger Majin Buu would have to be than Perfect Cell. A solar system, using ours as the obvious basis due to Cell, with the Dragon Ball solar system being relatively similar, having Jupiter, etc., would be around 2 to 3 light years in diameter using the Oort cloud in the calculation. The closest solar system to ours is then Alpha Centauri, which is 4.35 light years away, with its own diameter to boot. The Oort cloud is also far and away from the usual string of planets in our solar system, many magnitudes farther than the string of planets we know of that Cell and Toriyama was likely referring to. So to even shoot a straight beam from X to Y solar systems would be exponential in nature. But to create a blast that completely engulfs a solar system, crosses the light years of void space in between, and then engulfs another solar system is far more than just destroying 2 solar systems. It's not just 2 times as powerful. As a little side note, there is a Daizenshu quote that actually calls the Dragon Ball solar system a galactic nebula, but this is more than likely a mistranslation or a slight mistranslation to simply say it resides within one rather than that's what it is. Anyway, some will suggest that the crossing of systems would require something more like 680 billion times more joules in energy to destroy multiple solar systems, assuming the energy is equalized throughout the entire distance and omnidirectionally, compared to just the bare minimum of blowing up one. So let's be serious here for a moment. Majin Buu isn't just destroying a few solar systems with his utmost maximum power every few minutes, getting really tired, passing out, and then being called a threat to the immediate universe, probably within the 1,000-year lifespan remaining of the old Kai left. There are billions upon billions of solar systems in the galaxy, and billions upon billions of galaxies, and then some in the universe that is ever expanding and endless, as confirmed in the many guidebooks and by Dragon Ball Super. As a side note, the 4 galaxies thing, such as the North Galaxy, South Galaxy, etc., from the past, was confirmed to be quadrants of the universe and not a single galaxy. We also see this just directly shown in Super. Kid Buu is doing all of this with a grin on his face as he's shredding this universe and its galaxies apart, and not even really trying in quick succession. with some saying he's even a threat to the actual Grand Kai planet as he just zips to the afterlife to get smoke with the people he just killed, and which orbits a universal-sized planet known as Heaven. Goku then has to surpass Majin Buu, or at least rival and entertain him somewhat, with 7 years of training and Super Saiyan 3, whereas he was basically a Super Perfect Cell victim before the time skip. You may accredit this to Super Saiyan 3, nah, not really. Unlike Super Saiyan, which gives you a battle power 50 times, with battle powers kind of just being linear or exponential depending on the plot, Super Saiyan 2 and 3 are completely linear and don't use power levels. Super Saiyan 2 multiplies whatever grade 4 of Super Saiyan 1 is by 2 times, and Super Saiyan 3 multiplies the strength of Super Saiyan 2 by 4 times. But the guidebook, the Super Exciting Guide, goes out of its way to differentiate that it's not the power level in question, just the actual raw strength gains for the form's transformation. Meaning Goku had to reach an absolutely ridiculous level in the Buu Saga, irregardless of Super Saiyan 3 bumping him up a few levels. It's sort of like Super Saiyan 2 Trunks just getting smoked with Super Saiyan 3 Goku in the anime during the Goku Black arc. Whis then makes fun of them for these levels of training gains, and I'm not joking, Vegeta Super Saiyan God level and beyond half a year later. That could casually punch the universe away on accident. So you hear all of that, and then you say you want to know what would happen if you trained 1,000 years in Whis' staff while he's chained down by the angel chains. Okay, man, here you go. Since you kind of heard how the super method may work, I'll let some of you do the math on it. Let's start with the GT method first, because this is actually the downplay method upon further inspection. It's not even accurate within GT itself, but it is the easiest to digest and calculate and give you as an example. The GT method is based on how people would use it to calculate, back in the day, how strong post-100-year timeskip Goku was in the special many years ago. Fun fact, the GT method may have been somewhat more accurate in hindsight than it really should have been, for the mere fact that the GT Perfect files, kind of like the GT Daizenshu or Ultimate Guidebook, actually says Super Saiyan 4 Gogeta is the strongest guy in that book, even stronger than 100-year timeskip based Goku. But who knows if that was included with their calculation or statement. Anyway, the basic idea is that after the 15-year timeskip from the defeat of Kid Buu to Dragon Ball GT, Goku surpasses or rivals his Super Saiyan 3 state from the Buu arc at the bare minimum, as he fights General Rildo, who rivals either a post-timeskip Majin Buu or Kid Buu in power. Goku generally seems to have fun with him until Rildo gets amped and Goku goes Super Saiyan. Super Saiyan 3, as we discussed earlier, is 4 times the Super Saiyan 2, which is 2 times that of Grade 4 Super Saiyan 1, which is over 50 times the battle power of the user. Grade 4 Super Saiyan 1 is a debatable subject as it's stronger than Grade 1 due to the zero energy usage and drain from transforming that wouldn't hinder a more maximized multiplier and ability to stress your power output without as many restrictions. For the sake of it though, people like to slap the ubiquitous 400 times for Super Saiyan 3 because it's just so simple. Since this is the downplay and ultra lowball method as a example, we'll use 400 times for 15 years post Buu Saga. There is not one moment in the series, by the way, where 15 years goes by and the cast does not get more than 400 times stronger. Never happens. Whether in original Dragon Ball, Dragon Ball Z, Super, or GT, never happens. The story almost always seems to be what's the next step beyond destroying X, which is almost catastrophically stronger by an absurd amount of orders of magnitude. If you then divide a millennia, 1,000 years, by 15, you get a little over 66 times. So you would basically then multiply by 400 every 15 years, 66 times, or 400 by the 66th power, which would look a little something like this, which I've never said this in my life, but 5.4 sexquinquagintillion. I hope that's the right word for it. Or 5.4 by 10 to the 171st power. Yeah, I'm not even making that up. Do the math yourself. 400 to the power of 66, 5.4 sexquinquagintillion. All right? If you want to sort of gauge what that would look like in the series, it would sort of be absurdly and incomprehensibly higher than Turtle, who could sort of barely walk to the ocean without help, suddenly transforming into Super Vegito and then punching out a guy, screaming away the universe, assuming the universe isn't like infinite in size. So maybe Turtle becoming something like God Goku and accidentally punching away a macrocosm or something might be a bit more legit comparison. And even then, it would be downplaying. That being said, it's sort of not relevant to calculate the other methods. No character in the series with a finite power above Goku is over 5.4 sexquintillion times stronger than him. This level of power is so ridiculous that Goku would snap his finger and the entire world of Void and all the fighters in the arena would explode. So imagine if King Vegeta came to Earth and waved his hand and nuked the planet and the moon. That's not even in the same category as God Goku, and that would still not even be remotely a decent comparison to what he would do to Jiren and all the fighters there. Even Whis uses a finger to stop Moro, and the Grand Priest uses a finger to stop Beerus. Goku would not need to do that. They would all fall unconscious in his general vicinity, just like Vegeta did with Beerus at the start of Battle of Gods. Here is really the maximum you can say for Beerus compared to God Goku, without kind of making a lot of assumptions. God Goku gets God in base, or his God powers in base, and can multiply his God power by over 400 times by stacking Super Saiyan 3. Then if you say Super Saiyan God is equal to 3 for simplicity's sake, even though it can one-shot that level in the manga, multiply by 50 times for Super Saiyan Blue, you get about 20,000 times. The Super Saiyan Blue multiplier is mainly put on display in later Super concerning the anime. I got some questions about this, but where we see Super Saiyan God Goku struggling with base Kefla, and then Blue Goku struggling with Super Saiyan Kefla, and in Broly it's a bit more visually shown, with Blue Goku fighting full power Super Saiyan Broly, whereas they were using their God forms to fight him in his Uzaru base state before. Then Goku, by the end of the Goku Black Arc, surpasses his Kaioken times 10 from Universe 6 by facing off against a stronger and more bloodlusted Hit with assassination techniques with base Blue, and then stalemates him, making him over 200,000 times stronger. Then Goku and Vegeta surpassed Super Saiyan 2 Kefla, who surpassed the power of Omen 2 Goku, who surpassed the Kaioken times 20 Spirit Bomb. When Vegeta begins to adapt to Jiren, whose power is stronger than any he's ever felt before, and everyone thinks Vegeta might have put Jiren down with his adapted Final Flash, the Spirit Bomb is stronger than Kaioken times 20 Blue and is also enhanced by its strength, making it over 40 times Blue Goku, or 8 million times stronger than Battle of Gods Goku. Kefla then reaches this level in Super Saiyan and goes Super Saiyan 2 at least 2 times, so 16 million times. Goku and Vegeta then reach Kefla's level in base Blue, then can enhance their powers with Blue Evolution and Kaioken times 20 again, which would be about 320 million. Goku then surpasses this in Omen 3, which would be over 2 times as strong as his Kaioken times 20, going by history's sake. And in fact, Goku and Vegeta with Android 17 all combining attacks together is less efficient than just Omen 3. So Omen 3 is at 640 million downplaying, and Beerus is still higher than this. Beerus doesn't even begin to feel the heat, quite literally, until Goku goes into the anime version of Mastered Ultra Instinct, where he finally admits inferiority, and we learn that the movie Broly is probably stronger than him too. You could also say that base Goku may have surpassed his Kaioken times 20 state, or his Android 17-esque level power, as he rivals Android 17 in the final clash with Jiren in base, as Android 17 doesn't technically get nerfed from ki exhaustion. He has infinite stamina, but maybe you could say his more injured body is nerfing his power and it's unquantifiable. If that's the case, this number gets way higher, but it doesn't really matter. And in the manga, it seems as though they sort of just reach this peak strength and then they just learn to fight slightly better, as though they sort of already being near Beerus or the Gods of Destruction, even in the Broly movie, alongside Gohan Beast, Broly, Black Frieza, and the others. It's kind of weird. I explain all of that in great detail and the reasoning in this Beerus video here, so check that out. Anyway, Mastered Ultra Instinct, even if you said it was a fusion level multiplier from that, like Goku multiplied by Goku, maybe like the old Vegito Super Exciting Guy multiplier, unless you think it would be an infinite multiplier, going off of the current superhero where the instinct forms are greater than the fusion dance, such as Gotenks, with Goten and Trunks being relative to Gohan, Super Saiyan to Super Saiyan in raw power, or hundreds of thousands of times an increase going off of the Oob amp in the manga and his energy size compared to Blue Vegeta's and etc. Wouldn't it be even 1% the difference needed? If Whis is then a 15 on a God scale, and you had to go through this whole thing again, Whis would still not even be 1% of downplayed, betrayed Goku. You get the general idea. If they are at all finitely stronger or within the same order of infinity as Goku, if you think Goku has some level of infinite strength that he is surpassing, it's not happening. Even if you want to go ballistic and want to actually highball the differences between Grand Priest, Whis, Beerus, and God Goku. This isn't even to mention that Goku would also unlock new transformations. We're just talking about his base power. He could find a way to combine Ego, Ultra Instinct. He could surpass the entire Ultra Instinct concept entirely. An example of levels of infinity, which I sort of mentioned a little bit earlier, as if there are characters who are just infinitely more powerful or gain some level of infinite power, it gets a little bit complicated. But an example of this level would be infinity possesses every decimal between every number, would probably be greater than every number just going to infinity alone. So 1 to infinity would be a little bit less than 1.1, 1.2, 1.3 to infinity, at least in terms of the sheer numbers involved. You can also compare an infinite cube to an infinite square, and how the infinite cube is a higher dimensional object would just contain beyond infinitely more stuff due to its nature. If Zeno is just a way bigger cube than Goku, Goku will surpass him. However, if Zeno is a cube and Goku is a square, this is a bit more complicated. So betrayed Goku then snaps his fingers and they all explode, Zeno probably included, unless he is a cube and Goku is a square. I know that's insanely complicated, but you have to bear with me here. The only way this wouldn't be the case is if you were to try to calculate the sheer capacity of what it means to cross gaps between universes and to affect a multiverse in the realms that exist without time. This is where we get into actual infinite scaling, such as what would it take for Zeno to be able to flick his wrist and destroy all the 12 universes, or to have the capacity to nuke places like the subspace that don't even possess the concepts of space and time, where you would measure how much energy it takes to destroy things. This would be a similar thing as destroying more than one solar system isn't just like 1 + 1 solar systems. It may also have to include the ridiculous amount of space between all these universes, depending on how it is achieved. Maybe it has to also affect the actual spatial box that has to surpass the normal spatial boundaries of a universe. So, at what point does Goku just simply reach a breakthrough and then become just the next tier of fighter? When does Goku just become a cube? A new tier of infinite strength? This is shown a few times actually within the story, potentially, both within the manga and the anime if you take certain things as they are. It sort of becomes one of those things that if Goku is finite in strength and speed, he becomes one of the most absurd lower dimensional characters ever in terms of speed in fiction. To the point, most will argue he is just the highest finite speed in fiction from just the raw multipliers and feats alone that most are usually attributed to infinite speed characters. Depends on factors such as how much do you take statements and cosmology as literal in Dragon Ball. Example, the Dragon Ball universe has endless galaxies and is endlessly expanding. It is described exactly like our universe, if not just far more blatant and objective to understand. Then you have to digest, is it infinitely expanding? Are only static infinite universes infinite? At what point is coding the universe with the ability to rip apart its entire space-time with alternate dimensions, not just surpassing the universe's dimensionality itself? Is Goku punching Beerus so hard that it makes an endlessly expansive, multi-universal macrocosm into non-existence, just not him reaching infinite power? What about when characters are just stated to have reached a level of infinite power? Example, Golden Frieza in Fukatsu no F movie on the website is just stated he gained infinite power to reach God Goku's level. Kefla states she just has infinite power. Jiren and Goku shake in an eternally expansive and infinite-sized Mugen realm, surpassing time and space. Zamasu fuses with the future, the past, and the universe, and is literally called, not even making this up, he is literally called, when he does this, Infinite Zamasu. And the only one who surpasses him, who is then shown to be a next level threat, is Jiren, who then shakes infinity. To the point that they seem to have the ability to manipulate things that don't even possess the concepts of space and time, like Zeno being able to destroy the subspace, or Goku and Jiren's energy shaking in a place with no space or time. It starts to get pretty absurd, but I understand why some may be skeptical or don't accept it. But if we do accept it, how long would it take on average for Goku to make these infinite type breakthroughs per se? Right? Just for the sake of the video, because we already kind of gave the finite answer earlier, so this is more so for fun. The first breakthrough would most would agree would probably be Super Saiyan God Goku or Saiyan Beyond God Vegeta as a more grounded example, where they can just punch each other so hard that the endless universe would just not exist anymore, even while trying to hold back. By the time Battle of Gods comes around, most will agree Goku has been training upward around 30-ish years, irregardless of his body's age due to dying and training in the afterlife and so on. The problem with this is that Whis thinks Vegeta would never hit Beerus' level, even training his entire life, and Goku needed quite the amp and knowledge check to actually become a Super Saiyan God, meaning it could have taken more than his entire life to actually become that powerful, even more powerful than Super Vegeta, if he probably hypothetically even became a Super Saiyan 3 to an immense degree. Vegeta then, with the right training, hits this Super Saiyan God or Saiyan Beyond God level in 6 months of proper training from Whis. Frieza then does it in less time, reaching blue level in just a couple months from a rusty Namek Arc power level, whereas all the Saiyans are post-Buu Saga. However, Frieza doesn't seem to have done it again after training for 10 years in his own Hyperbolic Time Chamber of whatever kind and becoming Black Frieza. Unless you think current Goku and Vegeta in their instinct states are then infinitely more powerful than they were at the start of Super. After this though, we then see characters who shouldn't even really be relevant at all in Super get amped, such as the Earthlings, Master Roshi, and so forth, just by witnessing Goku and his god levels fight and then training kinda hard to reach the next level. Goku Black also talks about his infinite potential and sort of banks on Goku's infinite potential and his body's potential reset with similar stats and god knowledge to reach an even higher tier than the Blue Saiyans for his master plan. That being said, Goku seems to reach Super Vegeto's level and beyond in most forms of media after training for around 40 to 50 years at the bare minimum, even without god training, and with god training seems to be able to skyrocket these tiers exponentially. In the manga, Vegeta also reaches these god levels in base even without Saiyan Beyond God becoming a main thing during the Goku Black arc, and a hypothetical you could also maybe suggest is that if end of series Goku, or Toriyama end Goku, which was more so a concept before the continuations, has to be the strongest, and Zeno is an infinite tier higher than the rest, that he would surpass Zeno within 40 years, assuming Dragon Ball Daima doesn't keep Goku as a kid for another lifetime, and it's just very temporary. That being said, it depends on if you think Goku can replicate his infinite potential training within 1,000 years, let alone him almost doing it in 40 to 50 years just on his own, so pretty likely. That being said, that's all there really is to say about how strong betrayed Goku would be. He'd flick his wrist and the verse would explode if they aren't infinitely stronger than him, and even if they are, he would probably find some type of breakthrough and surpass them a few layers over before the series is even fully finished, if those concepts exist in the verse, let alone in 1,000 years of torture training and enraged. The only way he doesn't is if Goku is a finite being still and Zeno is like some beyond dimensionality omnipotent character, then 1,000 years may not matter, even if Goku surpasses his own dimensionality infinitely over. So Zeno would just be above those concepts. Then Goku would probably need some very, very specific amps and training to do so. Maybe some like DC Comics type cosmology amp, unless you think Goku is that level anyway, which hey, some do. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. It was just for fun, so don't take it too seriously, but it is fun to just sort of brainstorm what these absurd memes would actually kind of look like and why they don't work at all, why they're probably not going to happen. But considering how Dragon Ball Super has already gone, maybe Toyotaro will just get some ideas. Who knows?